All right. So thank you everyone for joining our tech talk today with the Tech Academy. Today we have Michael McCormack here with us as a recruiter, and they're going to be talking about basically how to be able to land a job within this market right now, and especially for those who are this is going to be their first job in the tech market. So thank you for being here and take it away.
Okay, sounds good. Everybody can hear me all right, I assume? Okay, great.
Yeah.
I think this is my third or fourth talk with the academy, which is pretty cool. So I appreciate you all keep bringing me back. How often are you all doing these kind of meetups with industry leaders and people around?
We have our tech talks every Friday. It really depends if I can get a speaker who's a recruiter, but we have a few in a month, like maybe two, three.
Okay,
Depends.
cool, good. Well, so about myself, so basically grew up in Portland. Got into recruiting back in 2017. Had been in my career for about 12 years up till then, and it was the first time I had ever gotten into recruiting. But there were some big factors that I felt were important for me to take the job. And the number one factor for that was my network. Networking is probably the most important thing when you're a recruiter. Like, if you have the network to, one, get clients, and two, do you know how to go out and get people to fill the jobs that we're working on? And I think it's paramount for individuals that are trying to break into the industry, uh, whether it's the first job or a new skill and trying to get into a new job. Um, the network is really where it starts, and especially in an uber competitive environment that we are in today. um, the 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 power of a network is going to be big. So I have a little presentation that I set up. And how long do I have here? I don't want to go over, and I also want to make sure we have time for like Q&A at the end here.
About an hour.
Okay, cool.
We
Well,
can definitely go a little bit over time
I don't think we
if
should
you're
take a.
be
I
okay.
don't. I don't. I don't think we need to. But if we have Q&A, I think that's the biggest thing here. Is like, I know everybody's going to have individual questions that they're going to want to talk about. I'm going to probably go through my presentation pretty fast. There's a lot of information in there. Some of it good, some of it, maybe. And um, so yeah, I think we'll hold off for questions at the very end. If you do, is there a raised hand? Yeah. If you do have a question as we're going through here, I'm okay with being interrupted. So please just use the raise hand signal at the bottom of your page if you do have a question as we're going here. But we will get rolling here. All right, great. I assume everybody can see that.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. Good. Well, breaking into tech when tech is breaking. Um, this 2022 and 2023, even 2021, like 2021 coming off COVID was like the biggest boom we had seen in tech in a very long time. Companies were on a huge hiring spree, spending money left and right, bringing on whoever and whatever they could to grow their company. Um, and usually, when a big boom like that happens, there's got to be a bust at some point. We hit our bust like in August of 2022. That's when companies started laying off. Um, the trend has been large enterprise global companies are doing a lot of the laying off because they did the most hiring. So you'll see 10 to 15% of workforce cut. Um, what you don't see is that they are going to go higher for those positions again in a very short amount of time. It's a business tactic that a lot of large corporations use. And then in the small business sector or like startup world, um, layoffs have not been affected as much. We're seeing a little bit of it hit right now, but that's pretty par for the course as far as smaller companies doing layoffs. They just do it based on financials, numbers, product. But from a standpoint of the market, um, I have a perspective on the market that's probably a little bit different than most. And when I say that, like, people talk about recession and how bad the layoffs are and everything, and I don't think anybody really looks at the positives. And there's a lot of positives out there too. And so we'll talk about those. But I want to reassure that everybody, like, there's a job out there for you. It just might not be the job that you want, but it's got to be a job that gets you going to where you want to go. And so there's got to be a little bit of give and take on a job search. So with that being said, let's get rolling here. So kind of the agenda for today. So we'll talk about market trends and analysis, evaluating your network, what I call the starting five for anybody who's trying to build a network or anybody who's trying to break into something or do anything. The network is going to be huge. And so I have kind of a mantra of a starting five that I like to use when people are trying to use a network, how to use that network, and then positioning yourself for success, which kind of is like a self-evaluation of like your strengths, your weaknesses, and then how to go about using outreach as positioning yourself for success. And then we'll go through some job search tactics that that can work for people, and how diligent people work on it is really going to be the, you know, the end result is how hard you worked on trying to find a job, because ultimately it is up to you. But I'll try to give you some tips and tools on how to do that. So right now, so 74% of tech companies are expected to grow in 2023. The other 26% are either going to stay flat and stagnant, or they're probably just going to close their doors. So, but 74% companies are going to grow. That's fantastic. The one thing that this doesn't show, so this is just tech companies. So they build a software, they build a hardware, they build something that the world is using. You also have your non-tech sectors, which is really where the growth is. So that number is not part of the non-tech sector, but pretty much any company now needs tech. And so there's opportunities all over the place, and it doesn't have to be just within tech companies. 300,000 tech workers have been laid off in the past 12 months, and 90% of those are finding jobs within 60 days. This data is all coming from CNBC on a report they did with Career Builder. So, you know, I mean, there's different reports out there, but I feel like this one was most accurate for what I'm seeing in the market. So 300,000 tech workers have been laid off. Non-tech companies are scooping up talent faster and faster and faster, like than ever before. So basically what's happening is these tech people are getting laid off, and because the tech is on a freeze, they say, a lot of these like health tech and banks and investment firms and insurance and manufacturing, all of these different industries who need tech help are scooping up, because one, they're not being affected as much as tech is in layoffs, and two, they have some money to spend. So we'll touch on that. And then right now in the market, as of today, there is 1.6 jobs open in tech for every candidate that is on the market. So there are more jobs than people looking, at least what data they can get for who they think is looking. I'm sure some of you are part of that one candidate that are looking. So that is what's happening here. As far as in-demand industries, so healthcare and health tech, you think about like I don't know, is Portland, where are majority of people from in this?
Um, I would say most of our students is like kind of all over the place.
Okay.
So I'm
Okay,
not sure.
great. Okay,
Okay,
great.
most of these people are
Good. There we
Portland,
go.
Washington.
Look at this. Boom, boom, boom. Denver. Awesome. Okay. Dallas. Massachusetts, but Oregon now. You sound disappointed in that. Northern California, Canada, New Jersey. Okay, cool. All right. Well, all over the place, but each of these places have jobs, right? So healthcare, health tech. So like I'm talking about Portland here. So I got, let's say OHSU, right? OHSU, very large hospital system. People don't think about going to OHSU to work on tech, but OHSU has like 60 to 70 tech roles open. So thinking about that, it's like, hey, they're in demand. It's not a tech company, but it's going to get somebody's foot in the door. And so healthcare, health tech is a huge, huge market, huge industry that is continually growing, especially with like within the mental health space. So that's a great spot. Banking and fintech. Banking and fintech are two industries that are always going to be here, especially with security, data, personal privacy, all sorts of things. So banks are always hiring tech people. And then you have your fintech companies who are like integrators, who are integrating a consumer's money with a third party. So like think PayPal, think Venmo, think Affirm, those kind of companies. But there's thousands of those companies out there that are hiring. The Web3 space or the crypto space is still growing, but it is in a different sector. Like AI and machine learning is very big in those sectors right now, but it's a very volatile space. And so I don't really put crypto Web3 in that banking fintech side. Security, cybersecurity, always important, especially now. Hackers are getting just better and better and better. So cybersecurity is always big. Manufacturing. I think of manufacturing, like I think of Nike as a manufacturing company. Any company that's putting a consumer good out there or something that a consumer needs to use to build something, manufacturing is big. Jobs in manufacturing are like more around like data analysis, reporting, business intelligence, Scrum, agile coaching, and then web development. There's some web jobs out there, but manufacturing is really about data and customer data. And then retail and e-com is also a very large space that's growing. Obviously going to stores and stuff is kind of, still there. People still go to stores, but I mean, a lot of shopping's done online. People always talk about Amazon. Like Amazon's great. Amazon's big. Amazon's the leader, but every store that you can think of has some sort of online presence these days. And most of those stores that have an online presence would rather manage their web presence and their tech in-house than go pay somebody out-house. They want to hire in-house for what they have. And then telecommunications, the rise of 5G has really taken off, and telecom is a space that will continually grow. So if you're looking for a job and you're not looking for like, the sexy tech, if you will, these industries are hiring like crazy. They haven't seen much in the layoff space, and there's a lot of jobs out there. So keep that in mind when you're on your job search. So what does this all mean for you? So I guess when you're doing a job search, it's important to kind of set yourself apart, right? Because there's thousands of front-end developers out there and web developers and back-end engineers and data engineers. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of them. And because of the layoffs, like those people with experience are on the job market now for the first time in maybe a long time. And people that are trying to break in are competing with these people, because what I've seen is these senior people who got laid off have been on the market for like, let's say a month and a half, start to panic and they say, okay, well, I need a paycheck. I need to support my family or whatever I need to support. And so they're taking, lower level jobs that might be below their experience, but they're taking them because they're getting offered them and they need to pay something. So the competition is really tight for there. So some things that you can do is be creative and be reasonable, right? If you're breaking into tech, like I know we all have bills to pay and we have, debt and everything else, but you've got to be reasonable with what you're asking for. Just because the market says you should be paid this doesn't mean that's what you should be paid. And so you have to set yourself apart. So if you're an entry-level web developer who is looking for 65 to 75K, well, if there's a job out there for 55K, I don't recommend saying no because it's not in your range. You've got to be reasonable with it. And reasons being, a lot more experience on the market, salaries and compensation really tell a story. Companies don't want to go through a mass layoff like they did this last year. And so they're being much more cognizant of how they're paying people, who they're paying. Is it worth an investment, right? They're looking at hiring as an investment. Don't expect to start at the top. Like I remember when I started my career, like got out of college, went and worked in sales, and I just thought like, oh my gosh, I'm better than all these people that have been here for a long time and I should be getting recognized and I was just young and dumb and I didn't know anything and I thought I did, but people think they should just have things given to them. And I'm not saying that you all think that, but at the same time, like, know who you are, know what your competition looks like, right? Like if you want to be a software engineer, let's say a UI engineer with React, JavaScript, or TypeScript, working with an AWS, there's your competition's so stiff. But I'll tell you, the competition has experience. And so they're going to stick to like, I'm going to look for a software engineering job. Whereas somebody who's trying to break into tech, like, hey, yeah, I want to do React and I want to do TypeScript and I want to build out all this great UI, but we got a tier 2 desktop support for bugs. Like, take that job. Take the job. It might not be the job that you went to the tech academy for, but it also is a way in, right? Like let's say data science or data engineering. I know there's a lot of people out there who want to get into data. Well, maybe you have to start out as like a business intelligence analyst who's making 50,000 a year, but it's all about like, what do you want your career to look like? Like what is it? Like some people, like I'm in my 40s, right? And if I'm going to start a job over, I know that I have to start from the bottom if it doesn't relate to what I've done in my past. And so that's critical, is like thinking, we're all good. We're all good in our own eyes, but we have to figure like what's going to look good to the person that's actually trying to hire me. And then last, what's important to you? Like when you're doing a job search, like what does your past experience tell you about yourself? Like I know in past presentations I've done with Tech Academy, a lot of people had careers like 10, 15, 20-year careers before getting into the Tech Academy. And now they're going to try to pivot their career. But like, don't let that past experience from previous jobs and previous careers like hold you back. Like use that energy and that knowledge and experience to help you find your job in tech. Yes, you're going to be taking a step back, but your industry experience is huge for companies looking to hire. Also, like if you're all about culture, like Google search, like what companies have the best culture. Do a lot of Google search. If DEI is is important to you, go find a companies really focus on that. Flexibility with schedule, like remote. Are you looking remote? Are you looking on site? Like if that's important to you, go find companies that align there. The more you can align what you want in your career with companies that offer that to you, there's another step of like being able to break down a barrier because you have that interest or that experience. So I think we have a question here.
Me too. I just turned on the mic, so you should be able to ask your question. So go ahead. Oh, I see. Let's see. It's in the chat. It says, I currently have a job where to get hired, I would have to give at least 2-week notice. Is that something that would make me less likely to get a final offer?
So you have an offer already in hand, or?
Is it a tech role that you're currently? No, hypothetically.
No,
So let's say
no,
you already have.
no, it shouldn't hurt. I mean, if you're interviewing and you get an offer, I mean, people, they're expecting you to give 2 weeks, right? Like 2 weeks is not a rule and it's not mandatory, but it's obviously a good thing to do with a company that you've been working for. And hiring companies don't care about that. Like, I mean, most of the people that I am bringing on to a new company wait 6 to 8 weeks to actually start their next job, just to kind of hang out and do what they want to do before starting up their next career. So, yeah, it's totally fine. Anything else? Good.
I think we're good for now.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Yep. So I talked about the starting five, right? So these are like the 5 pillars of networking. So like I start with the champion, right? So a champion is someone that carries influence. Within a company, right? You have your VPs, you have your C-level, you have your VPs, you have your directors, you have your managers, you have your senior staff, you have your junior staff, your mid-level staff, all across the board. It's all over the place. A champion is someone who carries influence over an organization or a department. Everybody should have some sort of champion. And when you're going after a job, if you're going to if you're going to go apply for a job, like I always recommend doing your research prior to applying to a job to see what your network looks like within that company. If you don't have any network within that company, then expand your network to maybe a second connection on LinkedIn with somebody who might have an in for you. If you could get a champion on the inside that is advocating for you, it makes it a lot easier. So champions are huge. They carry influence throughout the company. They provide insight to you for like preparing for an interview. So if you have a champion within an organization who's made the introduction to the hiring manager says, yes, I'd like to speak with this individual. That champion is somebody who's going to help you like, okay, how am I going to best prepare for this interview? Use your champions to help you get the job. And then they can also open doors for for you that others can't get into. And a champion is somebody who is basically going to be your advocate inside that company. Champions are rare because they're hard unless you have a very, very deep network. Champions are rare, and so if you have a deep network, great. If you don't, a champion might not be ready for you. But always keep your eye out. Like that's the number one pillar. If you have a champion, use that champion. And then when you are going to speak to your champion, make sure you give them an exact, like, what do you want from them? Like I just graduated from the Tech Academy. I've got 10 years of experience in a prior career in this. I feel like my prior experience at this company and now my tech skills kind of align with what I'm looking for. I am looking for this type of job, and be very specific so they know exactly what to look out for you on. Austin has a question.
All right. Let's see. So I'll read it from the chat. Should I find a champion at the same time I apply for a job?
Prior. So
Prior.
before you apply for a job, see if you have a champion in that. And the champion has to be somebody that you know or a connector knows, right? So a connector, this kind of leads me to this, Austin. A connector is somebody that can make the introduction, right? So let's say you don't have a champion within an organization. You want to go apply to ABC company and you don't have any champions in there. Well, your connector actually is connected with the VP of engineering at this company. And so the connector usually have very large networks. The connectors are the ones that are going to get you to the champion or advocate for you to a champion, somebody that's going to get your foot in the door and make an introduction to somebody that actually matters. The connector isn't necessarily somebody who is going to advocate for you while the process is going on. The connector is somebody who is just going to open the door for you and then kind of make an introduction to a champion, maybe get you an interview, but that's all they're really doing is they're helping you get into the door. Everybody should have a connector. And it's basically following a playbook, right? You got to tell your connector, like, I'm looking to get an introduction to this person at this company. I'm looking for this type of job. I would like an introduction to this champion. The introduction would look like, hey, my friend so-and-so is looking to break into tech in this role. They have this type of experience. Can you help them find? And then why should they help you? The connector is somebody that you got to trust. They trust you. They can advocate for you. You can't just have a connector who like barely knows you. A connector has to be somebody that knows you, can speak about you, and really will kind of be your advocate to open those doors. And then, I like to say, be memorable and be grateful, right? You gotta set yourself apart from the competition somehow, some way. And so, and then not, I would say connector referrals and references, they usually work like 50, 60% of the time. The other time they don't work, but always be grateful, be appreciative of it. Even if it doesn't work out, that person stuck their neck out for you. So always be grateful, even if it doesn't work out. So those are the two first pillars. The next ones are your mentor, right? Everybody needs a mentor. I know I have a few mentors. But the mentor is someone that gives you direction, right? They're not a connector. They're not a champion. They're somebody that basically is like your life coach, if you will. They have influence, they have knowledge, and they have a really strong network. They're selfless. They make it all about you. A great mentor does not care about anything other than finding success for you. and then has experienced life and career, right? You don't want somebody who has just had success their whole career and everything about it's like, oh, I don't know why it's not working, man. It's always worked for me. You want somebody who's been through some rough times and somebody who has seen failure and failed and has continued to rise above those failures for success. I found that mentors who come from a different walk of life are always the best because they tell you how it is. They're straight shooters. Having a mentor is huge because they keep your morale up, right? And they give you insights to, keep doing this, or they'll be honest with you and they'll tell you, well, you got to be doing this or that. You got to build on this weakness, whatever it may be. And then communication's key, right? I would say, like, if you have a mentor, um, like, speak with them at least twice a month, and make sure that you're constantly communicating with them with how your job search is going, or what kind of rough areas have happened in your life in the last 2 weeks. But make sure you use that mentor basically as your coach. And then on the other side of that is number 4 is the confidant, right? So this is that person that is basically like your why, or somebody that motivates you to be your best, right? And so this could be like a partner, a parent, a friend, a sibling, somebody that you can just cry on, right? Somebody who's like just going to pat your back. Like, the mentor is there to coach you, to help you, to make connections. The confidant is somebody that you just trust, somebody that you talk to every day, somebody that you really love, somebody that will just keep you going, right? A great confidant is somebody who's a great listener, is empathetic, and is humble, and someone that you don't want to let down, right? It's somebody that you love. It's somebody that loves you. It's somebody that will do anything for you. And so having that in your starting 5 is really, really big. And then the last person in our starting 5 is you, right? And you is like the biggest thing for you is like, believe in yourself, even when times are bad. Um, I will tell you, finding a job right now at an entry level is really, really hard. The I don't know the numbers, but I would say that it's got to be close to about 80% of people who are trying to break into a new industry, not just tech, um, are introduced by somebody. Somebody in that starting 5 is making the introduction and kind of pulling the strings to get them a job. So it's really important to have that. Always keep learning and improving your skill set, right? Like, just because you've applied for 40 positions and haven't gotten a job and have had like 3 interviews, um, you know, it's important to just keep getting better. I don't know how many of you use GitHub, but I think GitHub is a great repository to submit to open source projects. It also shows your code and your ability to code, if you are an engineer or a developer. So using GitHub and continuing to contribute to open platforms is always good. That way people can actually see your code then and there. Learn from your failures and make them successes. um, I'm telling you, I fail so much. I fail all the time, and it's the only thing that really makes me keep going, right? I always want to be better. I always want to continue driving. I don't let failure get the best of me. Like, I fail a lot, but I know that success is around the corner, and so I just got to keep driving. Practice, 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 right? Just keep practicing your skill. If you're a poor communicator or a poor interviewer, or you just don't know how to elaborate on things, practice this stuff. Practice with your mentor, practice with your confidant. um, those are the people that you want to practice with. Like, do mock interviews with them. Like, you can, like, chat GPT is so big right now. Like, use chat GPT. Like, basically ask it to set me up a interview with a tech company for a front end engineering position, and the 10 most common questions I'm going to get answered or asked, and just use it and use that as your interview template and practice that. Practice it. You could throw into chat GPT so many things and so many different scenarios. It's a great opportunity with that AI tool to practice things that you might not be strong at. And then just be the person you want to be, and don't let bad news be bad, right? Bad news is always an opportunity to learn. When somebody gives you bad news or somebody gives you something, always ask for feedback, always continue trying to learn what can I do better to get into the job I want or the company I want. We have a few questions here, so I'd be happy to answer some of those as we're going here. What do we got?
All right. So let's start with Jay. It says, what is an appropriate way to thank our mentors? Basically, what can I offer them in exchange?
Mentors shouldn't expect anything in exchange. So like a mentor is somebody who's doing it for you and not for them, right? And so I would say you shouldn't expect if your mentor is expecting something in return, then they're not a mentor. If you feel like you want to give them something, don't break the bank on them, right? Just a nice gesture. Usually a thank you and a thank you works very well. So I don't think you need to give anything in exchange. A mentor should just want to work with you and help you.
Great, thank you. And then Austin, you can go ahead with your question. The mics should be on. If not, let me know if it's not on. But you can also put your questions in the chat. All right, so we'll come back to you, Austin, but it looks like Jacob also has a question. So as a representative of EdgeLink, are you able to be part of our top 5 as the connector? In addition to EdgeLink, who are the few other people, companies you suggest that we reach out to?
I don't know. I don't know you, Jacob. I can definitely help you connect with people if you gave me an opportunity to know what you're looking for. I can absolutely be a connector for you, and get you introductions to companies and leaders and everything for sure. But from a perspective of companies and people to reach out to, I don't know. It's really on to you. Your connector should be somebody that knows you well enough to speak about you, right? I think that's really important because a connector is going to give you opportunities that wouldn't be there for you otherwise. And so they need to know what you have done, what your success are, what your strengths are. They need to be able to speak to why, right? They can't just make an introduction on a whim. And so, yes, I can be a connector for you, but I'd like to learn about you first to see if I can actually help you. That's big for being a connector.
Got it. To connect to that, basically Jacob is asking, how may we interface with you and EdgeLink?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. Shoot me a connection request on LinkedIn, and then I'm more than happy to like jump on like a 10-15 minute call with every single person on this call right now and just talk about your career, talk about what you're doing, and try to give you individual insight. It might take a month to talk to everybody on here, but I am more than happy to speak with anybody on here and give you some advice for that. So just connect with me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message, and we can set something up.
That's very generous. Thank you, Michael.
Yep.
One more question says, how much of a price cut should we expect compared to the average market report for that position?
100%. I mean, honestly, it's up to you. Like, I don't know what your motivating factors are, but I'm telling you, if you want to get into tech and you're willing to do it, maybe take an internship. It doesn't pay you, but you're going to do an internship for 8 hours a day and then maybe just go get a job at Safeway or something to pay the bills. I mean, I don't know. Everybody's situation is unique, right? I mean, you got to pay bills. You got to stay on top of your bills. You got families. Those things are, you have to depend on like what matters to you. Is it getting a job and breaking in, or are you doing this for the money? If you're doing this for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Yes, money is fantastic in tech. You can make a lot of money as a software engineer, but to break down doors, you're going to have to be something different, right? And so I would say like it's all personal preference, but I'm telling you, if you're going to try to break in, you got to be different and you got to be able to be reasonable and take some chances on yourself. That's probably not the answer you wanted to hear, but everybody's different. I mean, I don't know everybody's situation, but if I'm trying to break into something new, I'm willing to risk everything I have to break in. So, all right, let's move on. Gosh, time goes so fast in these things. It's crazy. All right, positioning yourself for success. So be prepared with an elevator pitch, right? So this is a 30-second pitch about what you want. So if you're just out of the bar, right, and you're having fun with your friends or whatever, and somebody introduces you and you ask that person, what do they do? And they tell you, oh, I'm a software director. I lead a software team or whatever. Boom. There's your, how are you going to pitch yourself? Oh, that's great. I've been trying to break into tech for the last year. I have some really strong skills on the front end. How do you suggest I break in? And just like something that's going to give them a little bit of conversation starter, right? So your 30-second pitch has to be something that's going to start a conversation. Always be armed, always be ready. You never know who you're going to run into or speak with, but make sure you always have something to tell them and intrigue a conversation. Know your strengths, right? So what would someone come to you for, right? Not necessarily your tech skills, but your strengths as a person. Like, what do people rely on you for? Maybe you're the person that goes and picks up people at the airport every week because you know what? You like to do that for your friends. Like, you're friendly, right? So what are your strengths? What do you do better than anybody else right? Something that is your strength. So know your strengths and then know your weaknesses, right? What's holding you back from success? I think the biggest crutch for people trying to break into tech is that they go into interviews very nervous, right? And that's part of the practice. They get into an interview and they don't have any real life experience of building a product or working on a product, but they have experience from something else. Like, tie that in and own your weaknesses. Like, if you are trying to fake it and say, oh, I did this and that, and you can't really show what you've done, don't lie about it. Like, just be open and honest. And people, especially hiring managers, appreciate that more than anything. If you're just honest with them, know where your weak spots are, know where you want to get better, explain why you want to get better, and own those, right? So well, Austin, you got to be better at faking it, man. But the biggest thing is being able to tell the truth and be honest with yourself about what your weaknesses are will go a very long way. And then network, right? You got to network and use your network to its fullest. And then, right, using your starting five. Starting five usually starts with a mentor who hooks you up with a champion or a connector, or it starts with a confidant who hooks you up with a champion or a connector. But I would start with the mentor or confidant and use that starting five to its fullest. Job search tactics. So outreach. When you're reaching out to somebody, make sure you're specific with exactly what you're looking for. Don't make your message too long. Be succinct, but tell them exactly what you are looking for. Be consistent, have a plan, execute the plan. When you apply to a job, right? You apply to a job, you don't hear back for weeks on weeks, and it's like, all right, that thing's done. And this can happen 50, 60, 70 times. You apply for jobs and just nothing's happening. The best way to apply for a job, if you're going to apply to a job, find out who the recruiter is for that job, find out who the hiring manager is for that job, find out who these people are via LinkedIn, and either connect with them on LinkedIn and shoot them a note, or find their email address and shoot them an email. But try to get in front of that hiring manager, in front of that recruiter, and just saying, hey, I applied to this position. I don't know if I'm the right fit for it, but I would love an opportunity to work for your company because of my passion for X, Y, and Z. Companies want to see people who are passionate about what the product is or what the space or industry is, not necessarily the job. It's not about the job, it's about the passion, right? So if you have a passion for something, I think passion sells. And then be persistent, right? Make them tell you no. Like, I know people in sales, right? I'm in sales. And so if I gave up after reaching out to a client, after my fourth reach out, I'm just giving up on myself. I always make sure everybody tells me no. I would much rather have a no answer. Leave me alone. You're a nag. Leave me alone. I want to hear leave me alone, because at least it tells me okay, they don't need me right now. But it's the same thing with your job search. They don't know who you are. They don't know anything about you. Your resume went into a application tracking system with 400 other resumes for the same job. Well, I would say only 10% of that 400 kept following up with the recruiter and kept following up with the hiring manager and just kept at it. those people are going to be rememberable, right? I talked about being memorable. That's how you be memorable, right? So get out in front of it, make people tell you no. Make people tell you no. I don't like the answer yes. I want a no answer, because if I don't get the no answer, then that just means I'm just sitting out there in the ether. Like, make people tell you no, and it's okay to be persistent and be annoying and whatever. It's your career. Like, go after it. And then be strategic. Don't just spray and pray. This is really big. When people are searching for jobs or doing a job search, they just apply to everything that they think they would be a fit for. That doesn't work unless you are a really, really, really good engineer and your resume is top notch and you are just unbelievable. Be strategic with it means, like, okay, I want to work in this industry, or I want to work in this space. Like, I really like helping people, okay, healthcare or mental health, or like, find your niche, find what you're passionate about, and then go do a Google search, say, all right, 40 companies in the United States that are hiring within healthcare for tech, or hiring within manufacturing for tech. Google will spit out all these companies, and then go research those companies. Like, take like a week's time of just research, and like really button down your search of like, who do I want to work for? Why do I want to work for them? And then apply to those jobs with this outreach, like being consistent, being persistent, like finding the hiring manager, finding the recruiter, like just stay in front of them. Like, you got to be consistent, persistent with it, but also don't just spray and pray, right? Don't just apply to everything under the moon, because you'll just knock your head against the wall. Like, why am nobody getting back to me? Be strategic. Take some time. Like, 1 week of research can give you so much opportunity for 10 years down the road, right? You take 1 week of not doing anything but research the companies, research the industry, research everything you want to do. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very, very powerful tool. So I don't know how many of you are on LinkedIn. I'm sure all of you are on there, but you aren't using it to its fullest. LinkedIn can connect you with anybody in the world who is hiring. So the best way to do it. So after you've done your research, right? You've done your research, like, okay, these are the 40 companies I want to work for because of my passion in the industry or whatever it may be, or they have the perfect job for me. Okay, so you got those 40 companies. Now you're going to go and you're going to find like people who within that company who post on LinkedIn a lot, are very active on LinkedIn, are constantly doing posts, like they're active. Follow those people, follow them, and maybe they'll give you some insight of like, they, they posted something last week about, the mental health crisis in the United States and suicide rates for teenagers, or something that's passionate for you, right? Like, I'm just using that as an example. It's one of my passions. My wife is a psychologist, mental health psychologist for teenagers, and it's unbelievable, like the passion that she has for it. So like, I'm just using that example because it's her passion, but she follows people on LinkedIn. She engages with their content. She gets into the comments. She says, oh, I love that approach. Like, just engage with them, make them know who you are, right? So that starts with LinkedIn, and then start connecting with employees at the companies you want to work for. So before applying or before reaching out to the recruiter, take 45 minutes, go to the company's website or company page on LinkedIn, and just connect with all the software engineers, connect with all the directors, connect with everybody within tech at that company. Just shoot out blanket connections and just try to connect with everybody you can within that company so they know your name. And then create an engaging content, be active, add value. This is your own postings, right? So like, just post. The more you post, the more comments, the more likes, the more you get, you're going to start building stuff. And then all of a sudden, all of your posts and your feeds are going to be on other people's feeds. The way LinkedIn works, the way the algorithm works, is that if I'm a second connection with you, I'm going to be able to see your content if you're posting enough. And so the more you post, the more the network is seeing you. And so, and when I'm saying add value, don't complain. There's a lot of complaining on LinkedIn. Oh, I got laid off and I can't find a job and I've applied for 400 companies. No, but I'm sorry. That's rough. Like, it's too bad. But dude, those SAP stories, they don't, people feel bad for you, but at the same time, like, it's not engaging. It's like, here's what I've done. It's worked for me. Anybody have any suggestions? Like, I'm not having any luck. I'm trying my hardest here. Does anybody have any suggestions? And let your network help you, right? The questions, ask questions on LinkedIn. But start engaging, start creating content, start posting on there. And then, like I was saying, like, be strategic, don't spray and pray, be consistent, be persistent, like send DMs to these hiring managers. It's it it's not weird, Jacob. Connect with everybody, man. It's not weird. That's what LinkedIn's for. Um, Send DMs, short, succinct messages. Be different. Be kind. Say like, "Hey, I love your company and what you did with this last month. I saw your company did this last month. That's really cool. That's a company I want to work for. Thanks for posting." Like, not, "Hey, are you hiring? Hey, I am a web developer. I've been looking for a job." They don't care about that. That's not going to help you. Engage, compliment, add value. That's what your DM should say. That's what your comments should say. That's what your posting should say. Be positive, add value. You know, don't do what everybody else does. Job search tactics. The job search. Know what you're looking for. We talked about it. Research, research, research. Know what you're going after. Like, find your niche. What are you passionate about? Or what have you done in your past experience that can help you? What can you do? What are your skills outside of writing code or outside? Like, what else can you do? How are you a good teammate? Maybe you get into sales at a tech company, right? Maybe you go to a sales job at a tech company, you crush it, but you know you want to be a software engineer company. Well, you know what? A company's not going to want to lose a top salesperson, but that person wants to be a software engineer. Well, all of a sudden, it's like, well, we don't want to lose them. Maybe we put them in a solutions architect role, or maybe we put them in a sales engineering role, or maybe we put them in something else. Just get your foot in the door. Like, what are you good at, right? And then think of the future, not the present. Like, job seekers are always like, now, now, now. Like, I'm a software engineer. I want a software engineering job. This isn't the market for that. This market is not for that right now. The market is, you want to be a software engineer. Not, I am a software engineer. I want to be a software engineer. I want to be a data scientist, or I want to be this. Well, think about, I want to be that in 5 years, not in 5 weeks, right? It is going to take time, but if you can just get your foot in the door at any job within a tech company, any job within a company, period, if you do a really good job at your job, you're going to get that opportunity. And then, right, talk about passion. I talk about passion a lot because I feel like if you're passionate about something, you're going to be really good about it, and people are going to be able to see it, right? People see it. So being passionate, and then the job research. Talked about the research. So I call it the 40-40 club. 40 jobs at 40 companies. So go out and find 40 companies that you would want to work for, companies that align with your values, align with your passions, and make sure they're hiring for jobs within tech. So that's where your research starts. You can do more than the job asks, right? So like, maybe like customer service help desk, right? You're bug fixing a C# product, right? You're doing bug fixes. Well, I have great customer service. I'm able to talk on the phone. I'm able to communicate well. I'm nice. I'm kind. I have great references. Like, do these things. Like, you don't just code. That's not all you do. Be a person instead of a coder, right? You bring so much more to the table as a candidate if you can explain what you do or your past experiences. It's not about what you're doing now. It's about who you are, right? Think of yourself as your whole persona, not just writing on a keyboard. Who's the recruiter or the hiring manager, right? Find them, sync them, find out who they are, and start messaging them. Start messaging them like crazy. After you apply, right? After you apply, just keep on them until they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you weren't chosen for the job." Great. Do you have any feedback for me? And then tailor your resume to fit the job. So like, I think for resumes, especially when you're trying to break into tech, like, if you're a front end engineer, have your front end engineer resume, and then have like a help desk support resume, and have a customer success resume, and have like a sales resume, or have something that can get you into the company, right? Not necessarily maybe the job that you want, but just get you into the company. So like, there's so many different avenues you can take to break into tech. And like I said, think about the future, not the present. I know we all want jobs right now that are what you're going to school for and what you're learning at the Tech Academy. But to set yourself apart, you really got to put yourself out there and maybe take a lump, take a chance. And then back to LinkedIn. So find the recruiter, write a short note. So it'd be like, hey, Mike, are you the recruiter working on a desktop support role? That's all my message would say to somebody. So I applied to a desktop support role. I found the recruiter. I shot them a message on LinkedIn. Hey, Mike, are you the recruiter on the desktop support role? Simple. You're not saying like, oh, I applied to this job last week. I've done this, this, and this. I'm a recent graduate of the Tech Academy. Prior to that, leave it all out. Keep it short so they can just say, yes, I am. And then you can get into a conversation, right? Or the hiring manager, hi, Carrie, are you still looking to hire for the desktop support role? Yes, I am, right? Keep it short. People are going to answer short messages rather than long messages. Be short with messaging. Like keep it one line, two line tops when you're networking and when you're researching. And like the shorter your message is, the more likely it's going to get answered. Scour your network for a connection, right? Going back to the top 5, right? Your 5 influencers, find your connector, find your champion, apply to the job via email and not a job board. So like when you're applying for a job, yes, you have to apply, but also follow up your apply with an email to the recruiter or to the hiring manager or to somebody. Say, hey, I just applied to this role. This will be my first job in tech. I really want an opportunity. Is hoping I can get an opportunity for an interview. Something like that. Super easy. But be connective. It's not just an application. It's everything you do after the application that actually get you the job and get into where you want to do. And then follow up until they tell you, not no, sorry. That's really bad. Sorry about that. But it's supposed to be no, right? Follow up until they tell you no. That is that. A lot of information in a very short amount of time. I can definitely send over this slide deck to everybody so you have it and you can share it with you and you can kind of go through it. But we got a few minutes here. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or anything that anybody may have.
Great. Thank you so much. That was very informative and honestly very motivating. So thank you. We do have some questions in the chat. I also turned on the mic, so you're now able to ask questions by turning on your mic. So just raise your hand and we'll get to your question. But let me just get through some of them that are in the chat. So Jade is asking, should we as a job seeker resign ourselves to the likelihood that we will have to move for a job, for like a good job?
If you're willing to relocate and you have the opportunity to do it. Absolutely. But that's again, it's a personal preference, right? If you don't want to move, don't apply to a job that requires that. Or but if I was looking for a job and I wasn't tied down to a place, I'm open to go anywhere, right? Anything that's going to get you in the door. So it's personal preference. I don't, but if you can do it, do it.
Got it. And then Marquita's asking, if you're a connector, how would you pitch someone you connect with to a recruiter? What is the proper etiquette?
If I'm asking like as the connector. So as a connector, I do this all the time. And this is outside of like my work, like connecting people. So if I'm going to go connect somebody, it's because I have a connection with that person they're trying to reach. So like, let's say Liam Campbell here, I see you on my screen. So I'm going to use you as an example. Liam connects with me on LinkedIn. He checks out my LinkedIn profile. He looks at all my connections and he's like, oh my gosh, so-and-so works over at this company. Could you make a connection with me or could you introduce me to somebody over there? Absolutely. So I'm going to go to that person that he wants me to connect him with, and I'm just going to write a short note, say, hey, Carol, Mike McCormack here. I have a friend that is looking for a new role, first time in tech. Would you be open to an informational conversation with this individual? Basically, I'm always asking for informational, right? I don't want it to be formal. I want it to be like informational, because if you can get an informational interview that's not tied to a job or not tied to anything, just basically like talking to somebody, if you impress that person enough, they're probably going to consider you for a job. So you just want to have conversations, be communicative. Don't always just be applying for jobs. Just try to have conversations, right? Put yourself out there to have a conversation. But that's how I would connect somebody.
Got it. Thank you. And then Donna's asking, what type of jobs are in demand right now?
Mm. Um, for like for entry level, for what? I'm not. That's a really broad question. I'm sorry, because in my eyes, every job is open right now. I think there's a lot out there. I would say that if I am breaking into tech and I want to be a software engineer, I don't know what everybody wants to be here, but if you want to be a software engineer, like just go to do a QA analyst or a desktop support or a customer service rep or something that has a little bit of tech, right? You got to bug fix something or whatever. You're able to use your coding skills. Those help desk support roles are huge, and not very many people want to do them unless they're just a lifer in help desk support. Somebody like you all who have the tech skills and communication skills could do that job really well. It's not going to pay you like a software engineer, but it's going to get you in the door and you're going to be able to prove what you can do. So those kind of roles are really big right now. Data analysts, BI analysts. So those are like data, writing SQL queries and, it's not very much. You're not like getting deep into data science, but at least you're writing some SQL. You're doing some queries here and there. So like those kind of jobs are really big to get into in the beginning of your career. Like just find your way in.
Got it. Thank you. And then how long do you think until big tech companies start hiring you in for entry level positions?
Um, they're hiring now. They're hiring now for entry level positions. Stay away from big tech. That like so Amazon's a big client of ours. I mean, we have a lot of large clients, but I would say if you are an entry level person, stay away from it because what's happening with your backgrounds, right? You have backgrounds not in tech. You go to the tech academy. Now you have the skills to get into tech. But the problem with big tech is they're looking for CS degrees. They're looking for people who are like fresh out of college, have a CS degree from a great university. And when I say CS, I mean computer science. And that competition is so stiff. You're going to be racking your brain and just pounding pavement. I would stay away from big tech unless you're going for one of those other roles, like not a software engineer role, like a support role, a sales engineer role, a role that is techy, but not like at that level of software engineer. It's very, very hard to break into those companies without that formal education in tech. They don't think the way that other people think. They think like very inside a box, like they don't fit this mold, they're not worth hiring. But you have the same skills as that computer science person, like you're just as good as them, you have just as much experience as them, but they're very closed minded when they're thinking. So I would, if I am on this call right now, I'm trying to not go into big tech. I'm trying to get into a smaller company, a really strong culture where you're communicating with people on a daily basis who are in the organization, right? You can get lost at those big tech companies. So, no offense if anybody has like family or stuff with those big tech companies, but it's not a good route to go if you're an entry level person and trying to find your first job. It's really, really hard.
Got it. Thank you. And then Jade has another question. I've heard that moving jobs every 2 years leads to the greatest earning trajectory. It has also been said that new jobs is the only way to get a raise. What do you recommend in this regards? How long should we stay at a company before leveling up?
Get your first job first. Don't worry about that stuff. Like honestly, don't worry about it because if you get into your first job first, there might be an opportunity within that company that'll give you something. And then if you are like, let's say you were a QA analyst at a company for 2 years, right? And you're like, okay, I am tired of this. I didn't go into tech academy to be a QA analyst. I wanted to be a software engineer. You go to your manager and say, listen, I've been really thinking about trying to get into software engineering. Is there an opportunity here at the company so I can go to the software engineering team? They say no. You say, okay, well, I'm going to keep my job here, but I just want to let you know that I would like to get into software engineering. It's a big passion of mine. So I am going to start looking. They won't fire you. They'll know that you want. If you've done a really good job, people are going to want to help you. And so I would say just don't worry about what the future looks like. Worry about what right now, right? Get your foot in the door. If you are all about money, again, money is awesome. Money is really good in tech, but don't worry about the money in the first year or the first 2 years. Like you're just trying to break in, and I'm telling you, you're gonna have to take some lumps. You're gonna have to take some like just some pride, some pride swallowing, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it if you can just swallow your pride and not worry about getting the job or the pay that you want. Like just get your foot in the door. I know I sound like a broken record, but get your foot in the door.
Got it. Thank you. And then we have one more question in the chat. What's a good way to initiate a chat with mentoring? How do you go about asking a busy person?
So how are you going about finding a mentor?
I believe so. And then how do you open up the conversation to ask them to be your mentor?
Yeah, good. So mentor is somebody that you already know, right? Somebody that you've known for a long time, a family friend, somebody who is very successful in their career, anybody who cares about you. So the way to ask them is like, hey, I'm trying, as you know, I've been at the Tech Academy. I just graduated. I'm trying to break into tech. I'm just looking for somebody who can like kind of be a sounding board for me. Somebody who's willing to like not necessarily help me make connections or do anything, but just be a sounding board for me and kind of guide me through my career. Mentors are hard to go about, but everybody's got somebody in their life, at least I hope, that has been successful, has a large network. But most people are not going to say no to that. Like if you know them and they know you, like most people are willing to help. At least that's what I've come across. Like people want to help people. Like I know there's a lot of crap going on in the world, but I think for the most part, people are good people and people want to help people.
Great. Thank you so much. I don't see any more questions in the chat. But if you do have questions, please let us know. And then, like Michael said, you can definitely reach out to him via LinkedIn. And then I did share that earlier. Let me just reshare that. And then I'm gonna share some links about because we are recording this, and then I'll share where you can check this out. But anything else do you have for us, Michael, before we finish the talk?
I don't. I mean, it's great. I'm glad. I mean, I know there's a lot of information here. Like, I think the best way for me to help you all, or at least like send me a LinkedIn connection, and like I'll take 15, 20 minutes or however long it takes to get on a call with you and just kind of talk to you about some stuff. So let me know.
Great, thank you. And then um so next week we have another talk. It's actually going to be a more recruitment talk as well. It's one of our graduates basically talking about how to um keep track of your jobs you're applying to. So it's going to be on that. I did share a link in the chat, so check it out. And then Jacob is asking if you're able to share the presentation with us.
Yeah,
So,
I'll email it to you, and then if you can just forward it on to everybody, that would be great.
great. I'll share my email in the chat so you guys can email me about it. And then, like I said, we are recording this presentation and you can definitely watch it back. I'll be posting it later today on our YouTube channel. And then here's a link where you can check that out. And then here's my email, Regina.
Um, I've already seen a lot of messages come through and connections come through on here. Great. Thank you for doing that. I won't be able to get back to you here. I got another thing I got to do here, but everybody who's messaged me, everybody who's connected with me on LinkedIn, I will get back to you before Monday and we can set up a time to talk if you want or whatever you want, but I will get back to everybody within the next day or two. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Michael. And then, like I said, just email me and I can share the presentation with you. And then I hope everyone enjoyed today's talk. Thank you again so much, Michael. And I hope everyone has a happy Friday and a great weekend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Bye.
And I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.